LCWR sent out a survey to all members in November 2019, requesting information from institutes about the number and age of their own members. Additionally, institutes were asked about the size of their leadership team, their most recent chapter, and upcoming chapters. Institutes were asked if they had made or were planning to make any changes to their structures, and if the institutes would have a sufficient number of delegates for future chapters and a sufficient leadership pool. In examining the responses of the LCWR members and data CARA has gathered from other research with religious institutes, there are 4 factors affecting chapter and leadership structures that are helpful to keep in mind and provide a useful context for discernment. First, the internal structures of religious institutes vary according to the institute's size and complexity. The size of the institute makes a big difference. Second, the age demographic of the members presents a very practical challenge. Third, related to the age demographic, institutes vary. In 5 or 10 years, how many members they can reasonably and practically be active participants in chapter and available for leadership. And fourth, the challenge of attending not only to the pressing issues of current members, but also of the members who will be in full-time active ministry 10 years from now. As one can see in this slide, 1/3 of the member institutes have fewer than 50 members, as seen in the dark blue and orange segments. Just over 1/4 have 50 to 99 members, the gray segment. 4 in 10 have 100 or more members, which can be seen in the yellow and light blue segments. Renewed structures need to be sustainable for both the current and future membership numbers. The median age means half of the members are older and half are younger. In this slide, we can see that almost 6 in 10 institutes report that more than half of their members are already over age 80, the gray segment. 4 in 10 of the institutes report that the majority of their members are age 70 or older, the orange segment. Only 4% of the institutes, 1 in 25, report that the majority of their members are under age 70 years of age, the blue segment. Practically speaking, most current members will not be able to actively engage in leadership or chapters in 10 years due to age or infirmity. Among the 212 responding institutes, 97% of their members are professed, and 3% are in temporary vows, novices, or postulates. Having someone in formation is correlated with the size of the institute. Nearly 9 in 10 institutes, 88%, with fewer than 25 members, have no one in formation, whereas 4 in 10 institutes with 100 or more members, 39%, have no one in formation. The survey asked about the size of the leadership team for each institute. About 1/4, 24%, have a leadership team of 3 or fewer, the blue segment. 6 in 10 institutes report having a leadership team of 4 or 5 members, the orange and gray segments. 1 in 7, 14%, have a leadership team of 6 or more members, the yellow segment. As the number of full-time active members changes, the question arises, is the size of the leadership team appropriate to the number of active members? In about 1/2 of the institutes, the leadership team is composed of 6% or more of the members. But if the majority of members are already 80 years of age or older, then that leadership team may be composed of 12% or more of the full-time active members. So the question arises, what proportion of the full-time active members is it reasonable to have missioned to the leadership team? How many members under age 79 will your institute have in 5 years or 10 years available for leadership? When we look at the information institutes provided in the survey about their most recent general chapters, we found that on average 36% of members were chapter delegates. About 1 in 5 of the institutes had 20% or fewer of their members as delegates. This is indicative of the number of current members who may not be able to actively participate due to age or infirmity. More than 90% of the institutes report that they are scheduled to have their next chapter within the next 5 years, by 2025. They were asked, after considering the information on competencies for a chapter delegate, do you have sufficient delegates for a chapter? 86% said yes, 3% said no, and 11% were unsure. So, 1 out of 7 institutes, 14%, are not clear on whether they will have a sufficient delegates for their next chapter. Nearly all of the institutes report that they would have a second chapter within the next 8 to 10 years. And just over 1/4 believe their institute will have a sufficient number of delegates for a chapter. Nearly 3/4 are not sure. Nearly 3/4 of all institutes are not sure that they will have a sufficient number of delegates for a chapter in the next 8 to 10 years. Similarly, when it comes to their pool of potential leaders, 80% of institutes report that they have a sufficient number for election to leadership within the next 5 years. But only 20% of institutes believe that they will have a sufficient number of members for election to leadership within the next 8 to 10 years. Hopes and expectations. It is important to keep in mind that on average, 200 women enter religious life each year in the United States. This is not a huge number, but it is also not insignificant. And it is increasingly a diverse number of women. 1/3 are Hispanic, Asian American, African American, or Native American. These 200 or so new members each year have hopes and expectations. Here are some of the hopes and expectations they expressed in the recent National Religious Vocation Conference survey conducted by CARA. They hope for an increase in clarity of mission and identity for their institutes. They eagerly anticipate the evolution of religious life. They are eager to move beyond diminishment and to expand the mission of their institute into new avenues for ministry. They are drawn to return to the roots of their institute and to restore a sense of its original charism. They desire members of all ages to be committed to living the charism more vibrantly, with a greater effort to live in solidarity with the poor and marginalized. They recognize stewardship involves divesting of empty buildings, underutilized property, and sponsored institutions to live more simply, utilizing human and material resources to benefit the neediest. The questions posed by these surveys are: will the restructuring of religious life be overwhelmed by the present challenges? Or will the restructuring of religious life sustain and foster a future mission? Thank you.